again with technology.
Yep, we know.
One day, one day. Listen. Okay, so happy Friday Night Feels.
Yay, happy Friday Night Feels.
All right, so we've already been kind of losing decorum a little. Decorum. One day.
Oh, oh my God.
It's
All right.
pandemonium. Put me on silent, Jen. Put me on silent.
I did. I just put you on silent.
Even I'm sure lots of people are like, can we just mute him? Like,
no, don't.
So happy Friday Night Feels, everyone.
Yay.
My dear friend Jen Halper is here tonight. Yay. July 3rd, 2020, during a pandemic. You know how it is, like every Friday. Here at Friday Night Feels. So before we get rocking and rolling, like I used to do when I was teaching, we're going to do a little, what is it called? Housekeeping. So just a few reminders that if you have a chance, please go to my website and sign up for my new free newsletter that I'm doing. It's a really great resource, doing different events, that way you can keep up to date with different things that I'm doing, but I'm also working with some great people in the community of different events that they're doing. And it's a great communication with a little dash of humor and sass. If you know me, you know that makes sense. But also if you go to my website, patrickmonette.com, it will give you a chance to see all my social media and connect to that, just the different things I'm doing and what's going on in the community about wellness. So there's Instagram, the Facebook, YouTube, all the magic stuff, because I'm hip, I'm with it.
You are so hip and with it, it's not even funny.
I think if you say that, you automatically get voted off the hip island, no?
No. You're like the captain of the hip island. I'm the co-captain.
So how are you doing, dear Jennifer?
I am good.
And you're like rocking it on the other side of New York, like you're busy, holding down numerous jobs, saving the world one person at a time. I mean, how do you do it all? How are you doing with the pandemic?
I'm doing okay. For those who don't know, I'm located in Buffalo. So Patrick and I are in the same state, but a little bit on different sides. And I'm also a therapist, obviously. I have a private practice that I do part-time, and I also work for an agency part-time as well. So balancing agency life and private practice life has been interesting. It's been a little exhausting. I'm not going to lie.
It's hard.
It is definitely.
And it's, and a lot of people talk about I think whether you use Zoom or not, it's like that Zoom fatigue.
Yes.
And
it's real.
And I didn't really understand it. And I was thinking, why am I dead at the end of the day? And then because when everything happened, it happened so fast that I wasn't used to using Zoom. I don't know how people do this all day, before.
No, I know. I agree. It's exhausting. I don't think I realized how tiring it was. And at first I was getting frustrated with myself that I was so tired, because I was like, but I'm just on Zoom or on
just sitting there.
Right. I'm just sitting there. But that is real. Staring at a screen for extended periods of time is very difficult for me. And I think for a lot of people. So obviously for you too.
Well, one of the things, and I think you and I talk a lot about this, and is about self-care. And I had to have the conversation with numerous colleagues to process that of when you're doing something like this all day, you have to be more mindful of drinking more water, having snacks, doing some sort of physical activity, making sure you're moving. Because there are days where, you sit down client to client or appointment to appointment, and I get up and it's like I haven't moved in 3 hours.
Yep.
And that's not natural or healthy in any way, shape, or form.
And I have a very similar situation as you do, in that I will be going back to back with agency clients. And all of a sudden I realize I haven't stood up out of my chair in 3 or 4 hours, and I'm exhausted. It's exhausting. So it's important to have a self-care routine.
And sorry, so a couple of people, someone said the sound, you're live, but the sound is low. Mine is turned up. I don't know, maybe check your computer, I don't know. And so Destiny and Samantha say hello.
Are we still too low? Destiny?
Yeah, if you can let us know. I don't know what to do about that.
I don't know. You and I, the two technological wizards.
So one of the one of the things that we were talking about too is, with self-care, and Jen is being in private practice and offering that, and I think that's important to know. You're doing online therapy as well, so that's a great resource for people. Is that going well for you? I mean, that people are adapting to it, okay?
Yeah, I think so. I think once you get over first that first appointment doing it via telehealth, I think then it just becomes it just becomes the norm, you get over the awkwardness, but then it just becomes like, it is what it is. I've had lots of clients tell me, like, I was really nervous at first, felt a little bit weird, but now, like, we're really used to it. I actually have like a new family client starting, actually in my office, which is
Wow.
going to be the first people that I see since this has occurred.
Wow. Okay. Because that's a whole other, not just for therapists, but I mean, all across the board, it's a whole new world. Businesses are opening up, doing all these different things. Um, so it's hard because you have to do all that preparation just to make sure you're safe and healthy, and your people are safe and healthy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And so one of the things too that Jen and I were talking about too is, for people in my area that are interested, a couple of the things that I've added for supports. I do a weekly mental health group for women, and I also do one for men. And it's been so great because I do it in the evening for people who are working or family. And I have to say, one of the pros of this, of doing it online, is it's nice for people who may not live close. Like if I was doing it in a space we don't have to worry about transportation. We don't have to worry about weather. We don't have to worry about childcare. So it's eliminated a lot of obstacles.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's almost kind of this odd therapeutic relaxation when people can be at home or, in their jammies, for some people, like they can just go in the bedroom for a little bit, or some go in the garage. So if anyone's interested, please just contact me. patrickmonette.com is my website. And the groups are really great, amazing people, just talking about not only things just with the pandemic, but everyday mental health issues, anxiety, stress, relationships. So please, definitely give me a shout out, because I think that would be a great resource if you need some support.
Mm-hmm. I think it's awesome that you're running these groups, especially right now. And I would agree. I think one of the best things about telehealth is that it eliminates those barriers of transportation, of weather, of sometimes you just don't feel like leaving your house and going to an appointment, to be honest, and it takes that barrier away, and it kind of allows, I think, so many more people to access therapy than previously if you needed either a car or money for public transportation or something. Like, I know at my agency we deal with a lot of people with chronic medical issues, and sometimes being out in the wintertime is just not realistic for them. So telehealth.
New York. I mean, we're representing different parts of New York here. And we know, I mean, we're in July, which, by the way, is my jam. July is my month. Happy July, everyone.
Happy July.
Strawberry shortcake for all. So, I think that's a great point, Jen, is also there's sometimes that shame or that anxiety of, how do I get help? I don't want to be seen going into that building. Even if you have a discrete building, all of a sudden, no one knows where you are. You can, what I've loved about it is people who are working or just really busy schedules, and they can just go in their car. They do it on their lunch break.
Totally.
Because if a lot of places, it's like for an hour appointment, you need 20 minutes to there, 20 minutes back with traffic, and that's eliminated.
Mm-hmm.
And and I'm hoping that no matter what happens, hopefully when everything gets under control with the virus, I hope that stays an option, because I think it's opened doors for people who didn't have them before.
Yes, I agree with that completely. I very much hope that this stays as an option. I mean, like, I was doing telehealth before this, just with my clients back on Long Island, because when I moved up here, I had a bunch of clients that really wanted to stay with me. And so the option was we do telehealth.
Yes.
So for them, it's been really convenient in that sense. But I know that the problem tends to be insurance companies and whether or not they will reimburse for telehealth services. And I am praying that this stays.
Because I think it's interesting because when I was in grad school, there was such a negative view towards telehealth it wasn't an option really because of insurances, and it was more. I think people thought it was more gimmicky, like, oh, you can talk to a therapist on the phone, ha ha.
Totally.
Wow, were people wrong back there? I mean, there's a beauty, and I love being able to see people live. There's a connection.
Yes.
But I'm all about options.
Absolutely.
And I also know, with bad weather, I don't want people to feel unsafe going to the roads, but I also don't want them to feel disconnected from their services.
Totally. Absolutely. And I think it's given such a broad ability for people to access services that, it might have been a big fear for people that they would lose their services because they couldn't go in person. And this has made it just so much more accessible. And I really like it. I mean, other than feeling like screen fatigue at times, I actually really like it.
Yeah, it's fun.
Mm-hmm. I know a lot of therapists that are like transitioning their practices completely to telehealth or getting rid of their offices and are just telehealth. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I see why they do it. I mean, like I could see it. I think right now for me, I'm hoping that it's an option. I'm hoping that it's not everything, because when you're in the human service field, it's like you're there, that human connection is important for us and our clients and being able to see, and it's a different feel. So I hope it just stays an option, but I hope it's not forced, I guess would be my best response to that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I would agree with you. Honestly, I would really agree with you, because one of the things I obviously, and you do too, and I would assume most people in our field appreciate, is that one-on-one or just that in-person connection with someone. And I think that I value and thrive off of seeing people in person. And I also see the value in telehealth. So I'm with you. I'm very much like, I want it to maintain as an option, but not be like the only option.
Right. Paula just signed in and she said, I really don't want to go back to the office. # no real pants. I've seen I've seen so many great cartoons of like, office life post. Like everyone comes in like with their underwear and stuff like that. Like, it's just so funny because, it's a different world. I have met, one of the things is I've seen this beautiful aspect of clients' life or people I'm working with that you don't get to see in the office. And there's a little bit of like humbleness on my part. Like I get to meet maybe their animals or just see where their home is. And it just has been this beautiful part of all of this. And I've really just enjoyed that. And I think clients have fun with it too, it takes away a little bit of that clinical separation and it makes us more just human.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
Yeah, it's been fun. Like I've had more cats and dogs like, hey, what's up?
Totally. Like they're just like a part of the session now.
Animal therapy.
It's true though, and I think it's so interesting. I actually want to see more of like clients' animals and stuff, because it's so interesting when you see like how calming the presence of an animal can be. Also, side note, I wish I had an animal here to play with while I was doing therapy with people. So, if you want me to take your dog for like 2 days or something.
She does not like the heat. Let me tell you, like even with the air conditioning, she'll like flatten out. Which reminds me, I'm not letting you borrow my dog because
why?
Because Jen just shared with me that it's like 1,000 degrees out and she decided to bake because that's normal. when like it's hot as the surface of the sun and we're going to turn on the heat.
Okay.
I'm just
Time out.
keeping it real. Hashtag keeping it real.
First of all, I was making spaghetti squash in a 400-degree oven. That was a terrible idea. I will admit, that was a horrible idea. I'm like dying of heat right now. All of a sudden, my apartment went from like 70 degrees to 77, and the air was coming out hot. And I was like, oh my God, you're right. Don't bring your dog here.
No, like she's like she flattens out, and I'm just like, are you okay? And then she just looks at me like, human, just go away.
Just stop talking to me.
But it's funny, and one of the things I said to Jen, was there's something about it. It's like whenever it's the hottest day of the year, that's when I want to bake. It could be like 20 below in January, and I'm like, I'll have a popsicle. But like, there's something, I don't know. It's weird. It's like, I just always want to bake something. It's really strange. Kelly says hello, and she says that I don't know that there's certain things you do in the office that we can't do telehealth. I enjoy both, and I think you need both. I think it's like we're both saying we think it's an important option too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and I would agree. I don't really know if there's like things that we do in the office that we can't do via telehealth. Other than, I will say, like, one of the difficulties for me was I was working with kids for a little bit, and I will say that. And other people may have different experiences, but like doing play therapy with a kid over telehealth can be really, I mean, you have to get creative.
Yes.
But it can be hard. It can definitely be hard.
It's funny because some of the things that I've received compliments on are my tissue selection that people miss. Apparently I get good tissues.
That's a good thing.
I do have to say, it's like I find these really good peppermints because peppermint's good for grounding. And then sometimes I use essential oils.
Mm-hmm.
And those are just, those, I'm not saying they're superficial things, but those are kind of those things, I like essential oils, and sometimes they help people like heal in a different way, or just with stress reduction. So sometimes I miss, or if I have a book, that a client wants, instead of, if there are financial challenges, here, just borrow it. Now it's, we can't really do that.
Yes, absolutely. I would agree with that. And I think that those are the little touches, though, that make each person's practice different, is like the little things that you incorporate. So like for you, the mints, the oils, all of that stuff, those are the little touches that really make it like a special, different experience to see you versus like some of the things that I have in my office.
Right. What do you have in your office?
We have like, oh my God. So my favorite thing in my office, okay, I also moved offices, so I still have to hang these now. I moved offices, but it's just a different suite in the same area. But I had right above where I sit in my office, so my clients who are sitting across from me can see it. It was these big pictures. One said inhale and one said exhale. And I was like, what a nice thing to look at. So I have to go hang them now. But
yes, we need pictures of that. We need photographic evidence.
I can give you
no pictures, it didn't happen, no real. What is that saying? No pictures, it didn't happen, whatever.
What happens in Jen's office stays in Jen's office, okay?
Not on Friday Night Feels. That blocks out the rules.
Right. I actually have a picture of them. I do. I put it on my Instagram. Jen H Therapy, if anybody wants to follow me.
Yes. Well, I told you I've been having issues with my phone, so I can't post on Instagram. Sons of bees. I don't know, the idea of getting a new phone just makes me angry, and I can identify my emotions and process them in a healthy way, because they're so expensive.
Yeah.
I looked one day, and it was more expensive than my laptops combined, at home, and I don't know, and I don't even have a super fancy one, but it's like, all right, give us your firstborn and a kidney, and then we can let you have it with the payment plan.
Can I ask you a question? Why? Okay, no offense to Android users, but you don't have an iPhone. And I would appreciate if you got an iPhone.
I will not give in to the cult. It scares me. I watched The Matrix too many times. It's taken over. I can't. Everyone's like, oh, look, someone got me one of those, I don't know what it is. It's not Alexa, but I was like, no, I unplugged it. I couldn't. Freaks me out.
I understand that. I understand that.
Oh, and thank you, Samantha. It says pics, or it didn't happen.
You're right, Samantha. You're right.
Let me just, and then Destiny's writing some, sorry, Destiny, my phone won't let me see your message. Destiny says, as someone with a disability confined to a wheelchair, there is a power dynamic between me and an able-bodied person. There is a lot of fear around being face-to-face, and that, for me, it feels unsafe. When battling that fear of being in person, I'm not able to less, and to be really fully transparent, I'm not able to be like I can online. That's really, thank you for sharing that. I love seeing different people's perspectives, and makes us think of different things too. And for people who have different, like getting into a building, if it's not, I remember when I was looking for an office, I was amazed how many business offices aren't handicapped, like no elevator, no door, no nothing. It's like, it's upsetting.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Destiny, thank you for commenting about that. That was a really honest and like beautiful message. And I think for both of us, like those are important things to hear, I remember when I was trying to get paneled with some insurance companies, and one of the things that they ask you are like, is your office wheelchair accessible?
Yes.
And I was like, wow, okay, never like actually thought of that. Luckily where I am, my suite, it's just one level. You go from the parking lot just into the building, so it is. But I was like, that's actually really interesting. And when I looked for something else, I noticed that in some business buildings there was like no option. It was stairs, that was it, no elevator. And I was like, this is not okay.
Right. And it's hard because they do say that, is there accessibility? And it's interesting because each, when you try to be mindful and of like language and, more inclusive, it's hard because that's the language that insurance companies use. It's like, is it this? Is it black and white? My first office, my main one, was not accessible to anyone. It was like stairs. You had to go up these stairs, these stone stairs, and then you had to go up a flight of stairs around into like a small office. But at that time when I started, it was all I had.
Totally.
So luckily I'm in a building now that has electric doors, wide doors, ramps, stairs, elevator, it's really, really nice.
Absolutely.
So someone did, and this is just a reminder too, like with a Friday Night Feels, is if anyone ever has a question or a topic, you can email me or contact me at patrickmonette.com. My website, like I said, has everything on it. And if you ever have a question or an issue and you don't really want your identity shown on the show or whatever, just send me an email. So we actually got a question, Jen, that I thought we would throw out if you're cool with that.
Let's just throw it out there.
So let me just read it. Give me un momento, por favor.
Okay.
So, hey, Friday Night Feels. One of my biggest issues is that I am a planner, and the uncertainty of not being able to plan is driving me bananas. I can't plan anything. Please help. That's big.
It is big.
What's your initial reaction to that?
My initial reaction is absolutely. Yes, that is totally valid because it's true. It's very hard to plan things right now because everything is very up in the air. As someone who is more type A, I understand that need for planning. And for me, I will totally own a lot of it is a need for control in certain situations.
Control. Ooh. Word.
Scandalous. But it's true.
I'm listening. Tell me more.
It's definitely go with that.
Go with that.
No, it's true. I think it's when we're not able to plan or things are up in the air for people who may have, I will own that I like structure. I like the known as opposed to the unknown. And that can be very scary and feel a little bit, I'll just use the term for myself, like a little bit unsafe to not be able to plan, you know? And it's hard. It's definitely hard. What's your thought on that? What comes to your mind initially when you hear that?
It just makes me think this is really hard. This is really difficult. I think it's really painful because if you're in the, I don't know much about the person who's writing of, are we talking like work, family, health, travel? I think it's hard. There's that element of grief that we've talked about of everything going on. It's summer here. And so people want to go to water parks and they want to travel and they want to see family, but there are a lot of restrictions and things are even being more complicated and more not boundaries, but limitations, right?
Absolutely.
And then I agree with you. I think when we're talking about planning, there's that element of, yes, I want to be organized. I want to know what's going on. I want to know what's happening. But I think sometimes when there's a lack of flexibility that makes me wonder what's going on deeper. Like, me, like one of my favorite phrases is go deeper. So yeah, there's that element of wanting to plan and everything, but if you go deeper, what's the underlying emotion? Like, am I not feeling safe? Am I feeling powerless? Am I feeling angry? Am I feeling resentful? All of those different things, but it's so easy just to say, no, that's all BS. I just want to plan. I want to know what's going on. Okay, but once again, I invite you with love to go a little bit deeper, because that's where the real work is going to happen. And here on Friday Night Feels, it's hashtag filter free.
Oh, filter free. You're right. No, I completely agree with everything that you just said. And I know for me, what I can speak to is the sadness that I felt not being able to go home to see my family, because none of my family's here.
They're in Long Island.
Yeah, all my family either in Long Island, Manhattan, or Brooklyn is where all my family is. So very far away from me, almost in Canada. And it was really hard because I had to cancel multiple flights home, obviously due to what's going on. And it was really sad. I didn't see my family for 6 months. And it was just this feeling of, I don't remember if I've ever told you that I have this feeling of being stuck. That is something that gives me a ton of anxiety.
Yeah.
I did a little EMDR on that, actually.
We got to get to EMDR because it's like half the show and we haven't even talked about it. Like, who are we?
Oh my God, who are we? I don't even know.
Gonna get in trouble.
Oh my God. Okay, but that feeling of being stuck is like a huge trigger. Panic. And this is how I felt. I felt like I could get in my car and drive back, which I did 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago. I did that. But it was this fear of not wanting to, God forbid, bring something home to my family, And so it was a lot of things.
Well, you told me about that recent trip, but it was big in the planning. It wasn't easy, and there was a lot of precautions that you took.
Yes.
And that's really hard. Some people can't do it. Aren't able to do that, and it's a struggle. So, and once again, like going back to that question of the person who wrote in, when I say it jokingly of going deeper, it's in no way judgmental. It's that whole look of it's multi-leveled. Yes. And that we can work on that planning thing, because that's frustrating. It's powerless. You're stuck. You're suffocated. Right. But if you just kind of give yourself that gift a little bit of going deeper, then that anxiety can really start to just kind of take a breath. Because one of the things that I work on, like when I'm doing workshops in groups or with my individual clients, is we don't want to eliminate our emotions. It's hard. I joked with some of my clients recently that people treat emotions like STDs. Like, I just don't want to. I want to get away. Like, chop it off. I don't know what. Like, get a cream. It's like, our emotions are part of us, and just because they're not communicating the way that we would like, in the most convenient way, it probably means we haven't listened to it.
Yes.
And the more that we practice, and I think that's what a lot of people during this pandemic are finding is I'm forced to go inside. I'm forced to say, all right, this is my exterior issue, but we're going to internalize a little bit and just say, I need to go and do some deeper work. I need to figure out what my triggers are, what's happening, what's leading to this. Because just like you shared, Jen, you can probably see it in patterns in different situations.
Yeah.
And when we want control, and I think there's that differentiation of healthy control, I want to make good decisions, to I'm freaking the F out because I don't have total control in this.
I agree with all of that.
And Paula shared that she's doing more crisis counseling now than ever. I would agree with that.
Me too.
It's almost, it's pretty rough. Samantha shared, I see a lot of people struggling with wanting to know where our lives will, quote unquote, go back to normal. That one's so hard. That one like takes my breath away a little bit, because our dear friend Amy said to it, I was talking to her one day, she said, I think we have to accept this is the new normal.
Correct.
And that's hard. It's sort of like, you know, this has shaken privilege in so many ways. Like, my life is going to be this way, protection, you know, but when a natural disaster happens, that gets wiped out.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, how do we rebuild? How do we do it together? How do we be healthy? How do we take care of ourselves, going back to self-care, and, you know, be adaptive?
Absolutely. I will say one of the interesting things that I didn't notice until I went back to visit my family back in Long Island. Obviously, I haven't been there in 6 months, so we've had this pandemic for 3+ now, and it's interesting because in a lot of areas on Long Island, some areas not so much, but a lot of the areas on Long Island, kids are doing something over the summer, whether it's they're going to camp, they're going on a trip somewhere, they're doing this, they're doing that, and it was interesting because my mom and I, she can attest to this because she's probably watching right now.
Hi. Hello tonight. What's up with that, Mom?
Oh, she totally was like, hi, Jen and Patrick before, but love you, Mom. Okay, but anyway, so my mom and I were like taking walks around the neighborhood, and the amount of kids that were outside just playing with their parents, kids like walking with their parents, kids on bikes, like playing in their yards, things like that, that I know there, it was really interesting for me to see that like there was almost like this positive that has come out of a really tragic situation, is all these people who were able to like spend extra quality time with their families. And that's assuming, obviously, I mean, I know that within all of this, there has been a huge rise in child abuse and in domestic violence and all of that stuff. And I'm just speaking from like what I saw while I was down there of what people were doing outside. And it was a really interesting experience. And even here in the neighborhood where I live now, I live in the suburbs. I don't live in the city of Buffalo anymore. And I see like kids riding bikes, and there's this one adorable little girl who's always riding her bike right around, and I always see her and I'm just like, oh, you're so cute. It's so sweet, like seeing people out and about, because they have to. What else are you gonna do?
What are they gonna do? I mean, they could like stay inside and bake
in 95-degree weather and then sweat to death in their apartments like I am.
People like saunas. Saunas are in style, right?
I hate saunas. Oh my God, I hate the heat. I'm like dying thinking about how hot.
Okay, that's what we would call a discrepancy in the field. A discrepancy. Like saying one thing but doing something that doesn't align. That's maladaptive, Jen.
Maladaptive. Yes. Yep.
So someone was asking, what is EMDR? EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy, and it's it's actually how Jen and I met and connection, and it was like the universe just parted.
and then brought us together.
And you know, it was like instant kismic of just that amazing connection. One of the you know, with EMDR, it's historically known as a trauma-informed treatment for, historically it was for PTSD. And, you know, through the years it's really evolved. And for me, in my experience, personally and professional, it's been one of the most transformative therapies I've ever experienced. And without going into like the whole soapbox of how magical it is, because I think Jen and I could talk for hours on that. We might actually, I think in August we should do a Friday Night Feels about EMDR alone.
I agree.
Done.
And Amy, you better be free that day.
Amy, yes, do it. Maybe we'll get Jamie on board. Yes, because then there'll be a musical. But I digress. So with it's kind of like this. The one word that I use a lot with EMDR is when you're stuck on something. People think that when we're talking about trauma, that it's clinical PTSD, it's 9/11, it's war, it's surviving some sort of assault. And although those are all different types of trauma, there are so many different types of emotional trauma, of distress, of a whole plethora of different issues that our brain sometimes just can't process, and it gets stuck in our neurocentral pathways. Sorry, I don't feel like that came out right, but you go with me. It's Friday night. I'll edit next time. But anyway, so it's in the brain, and then goes into the central nervous system, and then basically it shits the system, and everything that we see, it affects everything, kind of bleeds through our system. And what EMDR does is it helps the different parts of the brain communicate more efficiently and process those disturbing memories, and kind of like melts them down and helps them put them into the place in the brain where they're safe and sound and they're no longer as disturbing. And I love it. And I've seen it. It's with a lot of trauma-informed therapies that I've experienced. I don't think we've ever really talked about that, Jen. Some of them, and this works for some people, is to heal or address their trauma. They focus on the traumatic event and then they repeat it over and over and over again, or they talk about it until they get rid of that pain, right? And I had learned one of those therapies, and it did not go well. It didn't feel organic to me at all. And when I learned, and my clients didn't really care for it as much, but when I learned EMDR, it's just been magical and transformative. How would you, let's jump in with you.
Yeah, I mean,
How are you, Mike? Like,
I would totally agree with all of that. Yeah, we've never really talked about like other trauma treatments really, and like our views of those. And I don't think we really need to like go into that per se, but what I really like about EMDR is it's not just the talking, right? That's not like, I feel like so many people who have experienced like solely talk therapy over the years may feel like maybe sometimes it hasn't worked as well for them for certain things versus for others. And one of the things that like made so much sense to me with EMDR was just the way that it wasn't using talk therapy. It was really allowing like your brain in just like the prompts that happen to really like do the work to untangle. What is it in the workbook, in Jamie's workbook? What is it, like a ball of strings, like
yes,
like those string lights that are like all in a ball mixed together that you like can't pull apart because they're all knotted together. And what EMDR does is like kind of like untangles it all.
Right.
And I really appreciate that. One of the things I also really appreciate is just that you don't have to go into, because sometimes you just physically can't,
right,
all the details of a trauma that have occurred. And I think that part for me, like even when I explain it to people who might be a little bit hesitant because maybe they've talked about these things before and they don't want to talk about them again, is just explaining that like, we're not going to go into deep details on what happened, the chronological history of things that we're not going to do that. And how it works so magically to just untangle things. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, I use a little bit different analogy when I'm talking about trauma. I use like a string of Christmas lights that you put away and didn't, oh, I'll do it next year. And then it comes out and it's like a shit show of lights.
Yes.
And every one of those lights is a traumatic memory related to that belief, about that core negative cognition. And the other component too is, and I think Jen is hitting it on the nail on the head, is people don't want to go to therapy. They don't want to talk about stuff because it hurts. And our mechanism is all about survival. And if I don't talk about it, if you don't acknowledge it, then I can forget about it and I can just move on. But just like we said, with other things, if you go a little deeper, how adaptive is that? How is that helping you grow and learn? It's probably like there's some dysfunction coming out. Mm-hmm. And when you're doing traditional talk therapy, which I'm a little bit of a talker, I don't know if you knew that, it's a secret. Secrets keep you sick. Let's get
yes,
when you're doing traditional talk therapy, it's like when you're moving and you do one box at a time, right? It's like, all right, I got this. And then when you're doing EMDR, it's like you've hired a moving crew and they're coming in and moving that stuff in your body, your central nervous system, and your brain a lot faster than you can do cognitively. And for some people, when we're talking about trauma, Destiny was talking about medical trauma from living with a disability. Totally true. Chronic pain. I use it all the time in my groups. I love using it in groups. It works really well online. You and I have talked about that.
I know you're watching me.
I know. I know. I know. I do it with my couples. I do it with individuals, and people think it's always about like the reprocessing part, but it's the adaptive informational process model of how do I take something that's maladaptive, that's not working for me, and transform it to something that will be more advantageous. Mm-hmm. So that answers your question.
I have to tell you, I just got so excited with your analogy of moving. I get really excited when things make so much sense to me, and that is such a great way of explaining traditional talk therapy versus EMDR. And I swear to you, that's always going to be what I say now. And I'm going to be thanks to my lovely, wonderful friend and EMDR consultant, this is how I'm going to explain it. Yeah. It's so good.
And that's one of the things too, is when you're doing EMDR, and I think sometimes as clients, it's really important to know, for example, I'm a credentialed certified EMDR therapist and consultant, which means one of the jobs that I love, and I'm so humbled. I was talking to Jamie a little bit about this, of being humbled to be able to help other people who are learning EMDR. And when you're getting trained in EMDR, the amount of dedication and time and effort to learning this just demonstrates how committed therapists are to learning this, to be able to provide it for their clients. And it's really, if you have a good EMDR therapist who really knows the standard protocol and everything, and knows how to really do true EMDR, it will just blow your world away in a healthy way.
Mm-hmm. I second that.
Yay! Hashtag it's truth, and that's emotion. Oh, it's carried. No backsies, no returns.
So good. Oh my God.
And, and it's one of the things too, and I was joking with Jen, is that was one of the concerns, is how do we do EMDR? Because there's so many people, when you read EMDR, it's eye movement. So a lot of people know it's oh, I got to follow a pen, I got to follow your fingers. That's how it originated. But luckily for example, I don't like eye movements. It doesn't feel natural to me. In my office, I use tappers. And it's really funny, one of those things where I've had people come in and they say, are you going to electrocute me today? And I'm like, not unless you piss me off, but I don't know. It's still early in the day. So I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah, you get those zappers and you electrocute. I'm like, first of all, you're at a 5. Let's bring it down to a 2. Take a couple, inhale, exhale, come back to safety. But people hear a lot of that, and it's not. But it's like having two phones on vibrate, and it just goes from. I actually find it extremely relaxing.
So do I.
And then but we've had to modify that for technology, and there are a lot of different ways. Each therapist does their own way. I do it where people are doing tapping on their own and stuff like that. So do we have Destiny? You haven't. Okay. Friday Night Feels filter free. Destiny, I think you would love EMDR.
Same.
Word.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting. I'm trying to say it's the most gentle. I don't know if that's the right word.
EMDR?
Yeah. I don't know if gentle is the word. I mean, not saying it's not gentle, but it's profound.
That I would agree with.
And I think sometimes, and I'm just going to push here a little, how I hate to be the devil's advocate, is if you're not getting it out, doesn't that mean you're living in shit?
Yes.
And it's like, if I can find a way to get rid of that and I think, but let's be honest here, let's be trauma informed for a minute. Sometimes one of the reasons that people also are hesitant to deal with their trauma is that question, who am I without this?
Yes.
How do I keep myself safe if I let this go? You know that old saying, forgive and forget? That is I hate that saying.
So do I.
Because you're never going to forget, because it's part of your life, it's part of your experiences. Mm-hmm. And forgiveness, it's a whole other thing. We're going to have to go into another discussion of that. I see some comments sorry, I'm just
Kelly said, not sure if it's okay to say, but I have done it and I like it, and that's the part of the office experience that we need. That's a really great segue into mentioning that EMDR can, in fact, absolutely successfully be done via telehealth.
Oh, she's come to the good side, folks. Because if you're not doing EMDR and your therapist is like, do you want to do EMDR? No. It's like, then it's you. And I don't know. I'm just saying. It's like, but I mean, also, and here's the other thing I think that someone was saying, Paula was saying, is like, it's like, yeah, okay, we can do EMDR, but it's like, when my trauma's going on because there's a bloody pandemic,
yes,
sometimes it really is just like crisis intervention of how do I get through week to week or day to day. So there's absolutely no judgment in any of that, because I think we're all just learning this new normal.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to give kudos to your mom. She did say hi.
Oh, hi, Mom. Love you.
She loves you too.
Oh, she loves you too, Patrick. Hello.
Hey, I feel special. I feel special.
Part of the fam. You're like part of the fam. I will say, actually, related to what Paula said about doing crisis counseling, I find, and I think I said this another Friday Night Feels prior to this, that one of the things that I've been using a lot of, and actually I wanted to start using it so that one of my clients that I'm doing telehealth with, we're going to eventually do EMDR, but I wanted her to really like work on distress tolerance skills. And so we've done a lot of DBT just because like right now, because there is so much going on, I wanted to have like her ability or someone's ability to manage the emotions that come up. But that's also like preparation.
Which would be EMDR.
It all comes back.
It all comes together, yo! Hashtag EMDR. And, someone was saying, with their issues, would EMDR be appropriate? Okay, so with any therapy, what you want to do is ask your therapist, like find someone who does it. You contact them, ask them their questions, see if you have any, if you have specific issues or worries, just reach out. There's some great resources. One of the, so I belong to an organization called EMDRIA. It's the EMDR International Association. So it's EMDRIA.org. And it's an amazing website and resource. You can go there. They have a whole area to help you understand, like, what is it? Are there any limitations? Are there reasons you shouldn't do MDR? So, it's so much that I can't, I won't regurgitate it because I won't do it justice because it's so in depth. I've, in my experience, there's been very few reasons that I haven't done EMDR, but it hasn't been for any major medical issues or physical challenges. However you want to tie that in. So I don't know, like just kind of check it out and do and you can write, Jen, what's your website again?
It's jenniferhalpertherapy.com.
Right, and mine's patrickmonette.com. So you can write each one of us. Yes. Someone just asked, Jen, do you want to just expand a little bit on DBT?
So actually, I saw that Samantha actually responded. She was quick. Yes, DBT stands for dialectical behavioral therapy, and actually, ironically, I have one of my workbooks right next to me because I was working with a client the other day. This is like one of my favorite workbooks also.
Just put it up a little closer to so they can see it. That's who's the author?
Alexander Chapman.
Okay, cool.
And Kim Gratz, but the forward is by Marsha Linehan, who developed
founder, right?
Yep, she developed DBT. I don't know what year it was, but
it's okay. It's not your license exam. You're good to go. Oh my God, you should have a Friday night quiz. Oh, Friday night Jeopardy.
No, we don't have. I don't have to take any more licensing exams. Don't give me anxiety. No.
Make it happen. Don't worry. We'll do some EMDR. You'll be good.
Prior to it or after, when I feel re-traumatized.
Listen, I will never leave you hanging. Ever.
I know you won't. You're the best. I know. You know what else I wanted to say about EMDR, actually, really quickly, because I thought about this, was one of the things I also love is sometimes we don't know, like, why we're feeling stuck or why, like, for me, like I said before, like that anxiety of feeling stuck in a place, like physically stuck, stemmed when I did EMDR on that issue, stemmed from something that I never, ever would have thought it stemmed from. Yeah. And that I thought was the coolest thing because it really gave me clarity that, like, even though I've been in therapy my whole life since I was a kid, there's always things that sometimes, like, I don't realize where they're actually coming from, where they stem from. And that's what processing with EMDR actually did for me. And I was blown away.
Yes. And so that's a really good point too that I love. And I'm just going to do a plug for therapy in general, because remember, my belief is when you pick up that phone or write that email, it is so brave and courageous, because it's not easy. And I think, Jen, I'll speak for both of it, like it's such an honor when someone comes in, and we know it's difficult. And when we're talking about, there's so much complexity to EMDR. So just reach out and check it out. And if you've never tried it, definitely experience it. I love it. The other thing too that I've experienced is sometimes people will struggle and they don't know what causes their anxiety. They don't know what causes their depression. So it isn't, clinical, all right, I got in a car accident, or I lost my mom when I was 10. It's, I have this sense of doom, or this, awful depression all the time. So we can use body sensations and overall emotions, and it can help give you clarity.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. It's incredible. Because for me, the two things originally did not like correlate for me. Right. I was like, there's no way I don't like getting in cars with other people if I'm like going long distances and not driving. I like always having my own car, because it's like this feeling of wanting to like be able to get out of a place if I need to. And that was connected to something from years ago. And I never would have connected the two. Didn't have anything to do with the car. Years ago.
That's amazing. Yeah, because our body, and this is something that I learned a lot too, and we have like the pre-verbal issues that go on. So, and it's funny, people, so what is pre-verbal? It's before we're able to talk, before we're able to express ourselves. So maybe there was, and once again, when we're talking about trauma, it doesn't have to be long, 7 months. It could be a minute.
Right.
It could be one moment that for you, your brain held on to as trauma. So that means it's important and it can be worked on. Mm-hmm. I just lost my train of thought for a quick second. Sorry.
That's okay.
It was going back to what you were saying. Did I ever tell you like my experience of how I got introduced to EMDR?
I don't remember.
Okay, so I was in therapy and we were talking about something, and at that time, and this is when I fell into the soup where I had listened to a lot of the negative myths about EMDR. I thought it was, I didn't know about it, but I was getting stuck on something. I just like it was an emotion. I couldn't figure it out. So my counselor at the time said, "Can I just try a little bit of tapping?" And tapping is another intervention in the EMDR world. And so she started to do it, and she just did it very gently on my legs. And my body had just held something like this anger of something, that I completely, like you said, completely forgot about. And then and I'm saying like she was very gentle, but I could feel it. And then all of a sudden I just opened my eyes and I thought that she was still tapping, but she had completely sat back, but my legs were still like twitching to where she had tapped me. And I thought, oh shit, first of all, this is pretty cool and I need to learn this immediately.
Yes.
And so I did.
I remember you did tell me that. I was going to say, wasn't it like your existing therapist who like tried it?
Yes. And so, I mean, we got a few minutes left. So I don't know if you remember, but there was a little crossfire in our last discussion. Versus chocolate chips and raisins.
In banana bread.
Banana bread. Specific. So I think we're just going to clarify. We are not anti-raisin. No, I'm not. Well, if you are, don't cause.
I'm not. I'm anti-raisin in my own banana bread. I would eat someone else's.
So we're not judging.
No. No. I just wouldn't bake it. But I would eat. If you
I don't want to bake it because it's 400 degrees. I'm not going to like add it to the surface of the sun in July. You got to work on that. You're killing me here. Oh, and I'll take your dog and like put her in my house sauna. Good thing she's not listening. She's eating a bone, enjoying a quiet evening at home without any fear.
My apartment is normally. Oh, Kelly said no raisins and chocolate chips, and Karen said chocolate chips. Yay, chocolate chips.
But honestly, and I was thinking about that because it was one of the funniest conversations I think we've had. Am I the one that makes plain banana bread?
No, I make plain banana bread all the time.
I'm trying to think. It was weird growing up. I think my mom would throw in some sort of nuts, maybe walnuts.
Walnuts.
Would that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't think raisins and scones. Ooh, look at us. We're bakers.
I don't know how to make a scone. Do you know how to make a scone?
There's an internet thing. We can look it up.
Listen. I'm trying to avoid like unhealthy foods right now. That's another topic. The amount of banana bread that I baked, the amount of sweets I ate, and the amount of weight I gained during COVID.
Well, we'll talk about that when. What's the other topic that you avoided? Something else. I don't know. I said we should do a show on that, and you're like, no. I'm like, okay, so we're doing it.
Oh, you wanted a quiz.
A quiz. It'll be like, how many parts of raisin should go in this traditional English? And like if you watch the Great British Baking Show, by the way, if you haven't, you're missing out.
My mom and I love that show.
Mary Berry.
Oh, life.
Do you know when like a show does really well and then they make a change? Like when she left, I was like, sorry.
Uh-huh.
One of the sweetest, like, I remember this one episode where you could tell it was pure crap. And she's like this 85-year-old, and she's like, I see your intention was good. And I was like.
Plus, she has this beautiful British accent. I mean, that in and of itself.
I feel smarter whenever I listen to it. I'm like, oh, and.
I know. My mom and I say this all the time. Also, I just want to say, Brenna, I totally agree. I hate when raisins are disguised as chocolate chips. It's sinful.
There's that, Brenna, there's that thing, there's that meme, and this is where the conversation started with last time, was that meme of my trust issue started when I went for a chocolate chip cookie and it was disguised as a raisin oatmeal. Because it is tremendous. It's completely different flavors. I remember, oh, it's really fun. Like, when you do stupid things as a kid?
Yes.
This, I can't, I can never do anything because now it's on the internet, so it's real. I was with, my friend and I were playing, and I don't know why he would do this. Like, he picked up one of those eggs, and that looked like the Easter ones?
Yes.
That, like, and he thought for some reason in the dirt in his house, no, it's a robin's egg.
Wait, what happened?
He bit into it like an idiot. Yeah.
Ooh, I could see issues stemming from that.
What show are we talking about? Karen, it's one, I think is it on Netflix or I don't know what's on, but it's the Great British Baking Show. And it's one of what was nice was, I think a lot of the competition baking shows or cooking shows in the States are very aggressive. Like, I will cut you if you get my coconut. And this is like, it's this really elegant on this beautiful lawn. I don't know where it is, in a state in England. It looks magical.
It's like a enchanted forest.
But it's all like home bakers, and like every week is there, there's 3 different things and competitions in each weekend, and then someone's deemed the Great British Baker. But if someone's struggling, they all stop their baking and go and help them. And like everyone cries when everyone wins, and everyone cries when everyone loses. Like, it's really beautiful. It's one of the Netflix. Thank you, Kelly. One of the coolest things that we've seen.
Have you watched Kids Baking Championship with?
No, there's something about kids baking that I can't. Because first of all, they out talent me. Okay,
so it's a personal thing.
I'm a little bitter. Because I'm like, what the? I think I was hanging out with kids who were eating robin eggs. Like, that's what I was doing growing up, not making souffles.
They are so sweet, though. Just and it's Valerie Bertinelli who's also on it. Just the way that they're just such genuine kids. They all like hug each other and cry when one gets eliminated. And like Duff and Valerie are just so sweet and give them hugs. And then I think about Top Chef, which is one of my other favorite shows. They are cutthroat. They
will cut a.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's always funny. Top Chef is when the chefs, the judges are participants, because I'm like, yeah, now you know how it feels. So, as we wind down, just a couple of things too that I want to know. And Jen, thank you to everyone that's writing in your questions and engaging with us and spending your Friday with us. We really appreciate it. And Jen, thank you so much for being with me tonight.
Thanks
like
for
magic.
Asking.
So just a couple of things, please take a second, go to my website, sign up for the new newsletter so you can keep, so you're not missing anything really cool in the area. I have a few ideas for the next Friday Night Feels, so you can plan. In 2 weeks, we're going to have a couple other guys join us and do kind of like a men's talk about men's issues and men's health. And then at the end of July, we're going to be doing with some great women in different areas. I was going to say in our area, but one of them's not in this area. Talking about Black Lives Matters related issues in the mental health fields.
Awesome.
And then a dear friend of mine who works with a company called Arbonne. Sorry, I always mispronounce it.
Arbonne.
Thank you, Arbonne, which is really great products for skin and self-care. Like, she'll be joining us in August. And for those people who missed or weren't able to do it, last weekend was the couples free webinar. It's on my Facebook, but it's also on my YouTube under my name, Patrick Monette, Mental Health Counseling. And it went really well, and we had a really good turnout and lots of great questions. So my goal is to turn that into a monthly thing of every month of the couples round table, I think we're going to call it, where people can write in questions and talk about different things. And then the last piece is, so last time, I don't know if you saw it, Jen, was we were talking with Elevate 518 in Plattsburgh, which, makes these teas and stuff. So somehow the secret of my secret twin brother Matrick came out. Because they were saying basically, it's like, well, if you did these teas, you could only get one at a time. And I said, well, then my twin brother Matrick will come. So I sent, you know, Matrick a message, and I said, you know, would you ever want to come on to the show? And, you know, it's like he just takes over all of a sudden. So he's just like, Matrick is always watching. This is Friday Night Feels. Take care.